She'd just graduated. She booked a dream solo trip. 2 weeks in, she was sick, alone, and scared. This is the wake-up call she never saw coming. My sister Martina lived it, and this is her story.
Sorry, I'm just trying to get rid of this leg.
Actually adds a little bit of authenticity there.
Sorry, what was the question?
I'm just saying, how are you going?
I'm good. Yeah, nothing too crazy.
So why don't we start by you telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so as the listeners already know, I'm your sister. I'm your younger sister. My name is Martina, or I usually go by Marty. I'm 24 years old and I'm recently graduated as a vet. It's very exciting. And when I'm not doing my vet stuff, you'll find me running or going on hikes, reading, hanging with my dog or our dog, Louie. Yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Very nice. So if you had written an autobiography about yourself, what would the title be?
Great question. Maybe like off the top of my head, because you really put me on the spot. Potentially like Life as I Know It or something like that.
What's it called? Life as I Know It.
Life as I Know It.
By Martina Bai. Of Martina Bai.
Yeah, probably
I
just
like
do
it.
like Life as I Know It and then not put my name in the title, but just have it in the author's name. You really put me on the spot there, though, I have to say, and I'm surprised I came up with a decent, okay answer. I think that's what I would go with at the moment.
Yeah, awesome. And I think, look, if I put you on the spot, that's the most genuine answer maybe you've come up with. So maybe that is the autobiography title that you should go with if you were to write one day. I know you mentioned earlier that you're only 24, but I am keen to hear what's been your most memorable challenge or setback in life that you've experienced so far. I'm keen to hear your most memorable one.
I guess like there's definitely been a couple throughout my life, but I'd have to say the most recent one would have to be my travel adventure. I think that was definitely a major setback. And I know when, obviously off the camera, when Susan and I, my sis and I, have spoken, mentioned like previous incidences where I was bullied in school and things like that came to mind. But I think now, given that it's sort of more recent and it had quite a big impact, that's probably one thing that's really stood out for me this year and made me realize a bit more in terms of like other areas of health, especially physical. Because I guess growing up, like obviously mental health, physical health was sort of there, but then your actual physical health, I don't think really hits until you're a bit older. Because I think when you grow up, you sort of think that you're a bit invincible. Like you're never one to get sick. Well, if you do get sick, you'll recover, like definitely. But you're never really put in that spot where you're worried that you can't recover. Well, I guess I've been quite fortunate enough not to have been in that position until more recently. Yeah. I guess to go like more in depth into what actually happened, I pretty much graduated or finished uni at the end of last year. Was very excited, wanted a couple months off before I started full-time work because 6 years of uni is a long time. Even though it went by quite quickly, it was also painfully slow. Plan was to travel around Southeast Asia. I really like traveling. I really, really enjoy solo traveling. I solo traveled for the first time last year for placements and for my month off. And yeah, I found that was just a wonderful experience and I got to meet some really cool people. So I figured this time around I'd do the same thing, but started off in Bali and unfortunately it sort of ended there. I was meant to do another, I think like a month or two traveling around Southeast Asia and go hiking with a friend of mine in Nepal. But unfortunately, 2 weeks into Bali, I got very, very sick. Yeah, and it took me about a month to recover and then I sort of got sick again and then, yeah, sort of in the works of trying to figure out what's actually going on at the moment.
Just hearing what you're saying, sis, would you say that it is a particularly memorable challenge or setback for you is because you didn't expect your physical health to be unwell at your age? Would that be a fair assumption?
Definitely. I'm only 24. You do still sort of have that feeling that you're quite invincible, or relatively invincible. But even now, I think it's funny, like when I talk to my mates and hearing, oh, they've got, sore knees or they've had knee injuries or this and that. And it's just we're sort of realizing, oh my gosh, yikes, we're already in our mid-20s and everything like that's going on. Yeah, but I would say definitely that was a big one. But I think the other fact that I was completely physically isolated from my support network. Never really been in that situation before. where like my physical health was compromised to the fact that like I physically couldn't actually help myself. So that was a bit debilitating. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is it's kind of two things that really impacted you. One is unexpected physical illness, being at your age, and secondly, actually being physically isolated from people who's willing or able to support you during that hard time. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. I think those would probably, you've pretty much summarized it really well.
And sis, how has that shaped you since that experience?
It's put me off traveling to Bali for a little while. I think I just got very unlucky to be in that situation. Like a lot of things had to sort of align. And I think, to be honest, my own health was a bit of a concern throughout last year before I actually traveled. And I think it was sort of a wake up call to put it off because that's what I was trying to do. Until my body finally reached the point where it was like, hey, actually, Martina, I kind of need to focus on this a little bit. Yeah.
When you say a wake up call, would you be able to expand a bit more what you mean by that?
I guess it's sort of like you do it in everyday life, right? Where you've got maybe a certain task that you have to do, but you don't really want to do it. So in my instance, like throughout the year, and final year, it's quite tough because pretty much work for free, whilst being constantly stressed and not getting paid, hence working for free, and having to move about. Or in my instance, I was just picking different placements, not out of convenience for myself, but more in the interest of learning. So that was a big sacrifice. Yeah, I think, just putting things off when you should maybe put some or shed some light onto it.
Would you say that your advice to people is actually don't put off like health challenges, even though they are not a big, like not to put off health challenges, even though like those little nitty gritty things that's coming up? Is that a fair advice that I'm hearing from you?
Yeah.
Or is that something a little bit different?
I think yes, depending on what it is, but also ultimately just figuring out what your priorities and things are. I think when you're physically well, you start to realize how much you can't actually do. So then, for example, me prioritizing the fact that I had to graduate with my friends, and luckily I did get to, which was great. But I think in the moment it was sort of also realizing, hey, if I actually had to put it off, but I could have not felt that sick and felt that unwell when I was overseas, maybe it would have just been worth it just to put it off a little bit in terms of graduating at the same time as my mates. Because at the end of the day, I think I would have made it there anyways. But yeah, just realizing what your goals and things are, but also shedding into light, I don't know, everything else around you too, and not to be blinded by just trying to reach a certain goal or achievement.
In hindsight, what would you have done differently if you get a second opportunity?
I guess you sort of want to go by the frame of you shouldn't be living your life with regrets anyways. So even if I could go back and change it, I don't think I would. Obviously, I feel like the generic answer would be, yes, of course I would have gone to the doctor straight away, and gotten that checked out or figured out and maybe like put a stop to traveling or like placements and things like that to really work on my health. But I guess if I had changed that, who knows where I'd be now. Maybe I would have gotten to this point still doing placements now and just gone, oh damn, like my mates have graduated and I'm still going and this sucks. And it might have been a whole mental health challenge. So who knows? I think in retrospect, like if I could go back and change it, I wouldn't. Even though it was a really, really horrible feeling at the time. Like it was been one of the lowest moments of my time, without a doubt, both physically and mental health wise too. But I still wouldn't go back and change it because, like, I guess I'm already in the moment now, and I don't mind where I'm at. I quite like where I'm at. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's fair. So, but I guess my question for you is, having had this memorable challenge and setback, looking into the future, is there something now that you would do differently? Since you're not going to go back to the past to change anything, going into the future, what might be something that you might do differently, or that you might urge other people who's listening today to consider their thinking or what they would do differently?
I think definitely listening to my body, because if it's not doing something it normally should do, it can be a sign that something's wrong. And then I think the other one's just really thinking about what you're valuing in life and what you're putting first. Yeah, obviously everyone's values are different. Their relationships are different with other people, what their goals are. It's so individual that I can't just say, you should prioritize this or like, you should prioritize that. It's more just like having a good think about what you want to value and what you want to work towards, I think, regardless of what that value is. Like if you find that like relationships is your one top priority in life, then by all means go for it. But don't be blindsided by everything else at the same time. because you don't want to hit that point. And I feel like I'm terrified too as well to one day wake up when I'm 60 or 70 and just go, oh my God, all this time has gone by and why have I not done this? So I completely forgot about that because I was so focused on something else.
Am I hearing that you are urging yourself and other people listening to actually really work out their priorities in life?
Yeah, definitely. Especially when I'm like at this youngish age. I think it's also, I know it's just advice, but then it's also just sort of like saying, and if you're like 30 and if you're 40 or if you're 60 and you're listening to this and you went, bollocks, like I've figured out the wrong things in life, I'm like, it's also okay. Like you're not going to be perfect. That's just some advice for someone that's hearing this now. It's never too late. Yeah.
It's never too late to reprioritize as well.
No, definitely not.
So if someone was in the process of thinking, how can I actually prioritize things in my life? What would be your suggestion? How are you prioritizing today? What are the techniques or tips?
Like I'm failing sometimes at prioritizing. I'll be honest. I think sometimes, like especially now, I get caught up with work or like fitness or the lack of doing fitness or this and that. So I don't think it's perfect just to say, hey, I'm going to prioritize on this and that's it. Because unless you've got an amazing work ethic and drive, because I don't, you'll definitely find that you'll stray away from that path of following your priority. What works for you is only like it's just going to depend on what works for you. For me, I find that like literally sitting down, getting out like a planner or a diary and just like drawing a mind map or something helps. By thinking about what events and things that I've got planned coming up throughout the month and what I'm like sort of valuing or trying to strive towards. That's what works for me. And like sometimes just walking like at the beach without like hopefully not being on my phone and not having music in my ear, but just sort of like sitting there and having just to think, just like staring at the waves. But that's me. And everyone else is very, very different. So if you need to go to a cafe, go to a cafe. If you need to like just sit down with a mate or sit down with a sister or a brother or sibling or anything or your partner, then do that. Just do whatever works for you, or because they show you that it's one way to do it, or even if you're hearing me say that's one way to do it, it's not the only way.
I'm hearing that you're suggesting the importance of having to set down some intentional space for you to think about priorities, and you can do that through mind mapping, diarying, walking, or sitting in a cafe,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, pretty much just like an intentional space where you sort of have that focus to do it potentially. But yeah, summed it up perfectly, sis.
Awesome. I love that, sis. And just any final thoughts or any other final wisdom that you want to share?
I don't know, just live your life, hey. And it's not be kind to others. I know that's such a vague and like classic thing that people say. But I think like in the last couple of weeks from personal experiences, it's really, really not that hard for you to be kind to someone else because you don't know how much you can impact their life from just a simple thing you might say, no matter your age or whatever the situation is. Yeah, I don't think there's any need to be unkind to others because it really just doesn't take you anywhere and it doesn't help them, definitely. So yeah, I know it's a very generic thing to say, but it's just from a personal experience the last couple of weeks that doesn't hurt for some people to keep in mind.
Sounds like that's a story for another time.
Yes, invite me back if you will, but if the listeners don't like this, by all means, I can just help you record things in the future and just stay off the camera and audio.
Awesome. It's been great having you, sis.
Bye,
Bye.
sis.
Yeah.
There you are. Thanks for listening.
The one thing that I'm taking away from Martina's story is when your body's trying to tell you something, even something small or nagging, listen. Don't put it off. Don't wait for a crisis to hit you. If this story made you pause, share it with someone who needs the reminder too. And if you're new here, welcome. Hit subscribe for more raw, real stories from everyday women. Bye for now, friends.